Thank you for waiting. I appreciate you all. So, as advertised, the storyline today is going to be about the Klickatat Cat and its known territories and its top competitor. So, at the end of this little discussion about the Klickatat Cat, I'll take a break, answer any questions that anybody has, and then I'll go on to the next topic, which will be a little bit more about like the bear societies, deer societies, ancient religious structures, tribal religious structures, that sort of thing that I'm aware of. And then we'll do some more questions, and I'll talk a bit more about uh, von Pitzinger's work and some of the symbols, glyphs, petroglyphic writing that she's got documented, and some of the transitional meanings of some of the images because I know some of them. And education is, sharing that knowledge. So let's get into it. Let me turn this camera around. So this supposedly is a Klickatat cat, known here along the Columbia River Gorge. They actually like to live in the hoodoos up there. Now, hoodoos are actually mountain structures, little outcroppings like this. You see them all over the southwestern desert. It's an erosion in sandstone from flooding, rain, etc., wear, wind. The Sphinx has some of this sort of erosion going on. So this is very ancient rock. 20 million years or so. This is what mountains look like after they wear down over that amount of time. It was said that the Klickatat cat nested in areas like this, lived, foraged, and hunted in areas like this. So back in, I think my grandmother said it was the late 20s, early 30s. She got to see an elderly male Klickatat cat. An elder from one of the tribal systems up there walked her in and showed her where the old guy nested up in the hoodoos. And he'd roar in the morning like a lion, according to her. Bellow kind of to mark his territory. And he had this kind of stripy, real thick coat, but she went in the winter, I think. He was all black, but she said he had a thick, double-layered coat, it looked like. She was maybe 150 feet away from him. Good enough to, and it was early morning, so it was good enough to see him in pretty good detail. And the old elder had been feeding him because he was aged and couldn't hunt anymore, so he was used to seeing the elder from that tribe come up. So having a guest wasn't shocking to him. He just kind of turned, looked at her, and yawned. And so anyway, he said he was about 15 feet long and probably 480, 520, even in age. He was starting to go gray in the muzzle and up on his cheeks. That's what I tried to represent in this drawing. And he was kind of speckled in his mane. And she said he had a thicker coat around his, like a ruff of hair. Like he was part lion or something and part tiger. He had a lion-like tail, which he did flick at her a couple times. So the old guy said, don't approach. And they left I think they brought up a goat or something for him. So they delivered the meal. And she said he had bright yellow lemon eyes. She did say he had some melanization difference. He had a lot of characteristics, according to her, that were very dog-like. He had a black tongue, but he had like pink melanization, off coloring, in the mouth, along his lower lip, and he had when he yawned, there was a spot in his tongue too, she said. And his nose was mostly pink, but had black corners. And he was old, snaggle-toothed, and he had extended teeth. Sort of sabers-like in her opinion, but not as large. So yeah, he was on the sunning in the morning sun up on a rock parapet about 40 feet above them. And then later, my mother, when she was serving in the military, my mother got to see a juvenile that was about 12 foot long. He also had a similar melanization thing going on. His nose, his mouth. She described this one, though, as having a bare face. It was black in tone, dark gray skin like a primate's. My grandmother said this cat also looked like it had dark skin like chow dogs have, is how she described it. And she claimed his face was kind of a mix between a primate, because he had a thick brow ridge and high cheekbones, so dog-like, cat-like, primate-like, even in old age, real short, hairy internal ears, not big fluffs like manxes or anything like that, or lynxes have. He had a real heavy front mustache and real thick chin hair. The one that my mom saw, I think she saw it in she'd gone for training from OLMA to Fort Lewis when she was taking machining courses. I think it was 42 or 43. And they went up, they got some time off. Her and a couple of the other whacks got time off. They requisitioned, I think, a Jeep or some dang thing. Truck, I can't remember. They had time enough and ability to get a vehicle. And a small group of them went up to, what do they call it? Uh, horse, Horse Thief Rock, which is an old Paleolithic site. It's a national park now. And they went for a day hike because it's just an hour or so, maybe 2 hour drive from Fort Lewis. And I think there were three or four girls with her. All of them saw a juvenile, and he was younger, 12 foot. Mom figured he was 400 pounds, so he was pretty well fed. He again had the beginnings, she said, of what looked like a lion mane. His overall coat was shorter, but then I think it was either spring or fall. I think spring that she saw this thing in. Uh, and they saw it from Karma, stop it. I think they saw it from about 50 or 60 feet away. It scared them really bad because she said the front of its face, it looked so bizarre. And my mom drew me a picture that I couldn't find, so I just redrew what she had drawn for me. And what she described was this thing. This is what she drew. She described it as having a thick brow ridge, a very primate looking eye set, persimmon yellow green eyes with a discoloration melanization patch here. The top of the nose and one side was melanized, the lower lip. Probably a descendant of this guy. Here's the weird thing. The last sighting of this dude, he's getting old. 2-3 years ago, somebody sighted him up in the gorge. So this one is still alive, the one my mother saw in 42, 43. Now, my grandmother claims some of these things could live into their 80s. They were really, really archaic, and they could live a really long time. Like a lot of archaic things seem to have lived longer. Maybe it's just due to their diet. And he didn't have as much hair on his front muzzle, and he had like chimpanzee looking chin hair. She also said that he pursed his lips at him like a primate and did this kind of at him like a primate does. So I don't know if these are the same creature. Maybe this is the female because they weren't able to tell what gender it was. Maybe there is a reason for the size difference. Maybe there are some characters between females and males. This one was definitely identified as male. But I don't think they got a good enough look at this one. It was sitting behind a hoodoo when they noticed it. It come down uh, because they heard the clatter of loose stone. They turned to look, and it was sitting there looking at them. And then it made that kind of funny sound. She also said he had this kind of bottle brush, kind of bristle hair on his head. Maybe it's just because it's younger, or maybe it's because it was female. She said it also had a very wrinkly nose between the eyes and the nose tip. So these could be male and female potentially. I don't know. But it would be interesting to find out. And I don't know if this one today, the sightings have been able to tell us gender on it. I'm really curious. I'd really love to talk to Maggie's outfitter up there. I'd like to talk to the guy who manages the sightings. I'd like to understand more because I have some background on these things. Maybe we can compare notes and help each other. Because if this clan of, or this family group is still alive, I also know where there are some petrified tracks up in the hoodoos. If I can follow my grandmother's directions well enough. She described the site in story form, and unfortunately some of the stones that I needed to know the exact location of have been moved for preservation purposes. So I don't even know if I can get to the area. But when my grandmother was there, the elder also showed her approximately 26 tracks preserved in mud bedrock along the hoodoo edge up there somewhere. That's hopefully going to be one of my field trips here this summer. Anyhow, we can do some questions now, or I can do the rest of this half, because we're going to get into territory. So let me maybe stop for a second, and we'll do some questions real quick. Let me turn this around. Doggo napping there. Hi, everyone. Sorry for being a little late. Hey, to Chisel. Hey, Michigan. Yeah, they are huge. But they're not that much larger than their top competitor in ancient times, which was the saber-toothed cat. I'm guessing, according to my native lore, that the Klickatat cat might be a survivor from, the Pliocene epoch, 65 million, 66 million years ago. Because the saber-toothed tiger had a massive, across the United States, there wasn't an area the saber-tooth wasn't in, period. They were everywhere. They were all the way up to Alaska. They were all the way down to the southern tip. They were across half of Europe. There were, 3 or 4 major species of them, one of them topping out at 500 pounds, which would have been a really good ancient competitor. Additionally, dire wolves were in the mix as competitors with these guys, according to my grandmother. So let me do a few questions. Let me calm down because I had an exciting afternoon. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. All right. Okay. Candle. He sounds like a... Yes, he does. Eurasian cave lion. You know, I just looked, and part of the reason why I took ancient... Let's see. So part of my studies that I focused on when I was doing my coursework in college was ancient architecture and sculpture. Because I wanted to see if there were any representations that might be relevant. And the Etruscan lion looks to me very similar to either a saber-toothed cat or some offshoot of the Klickatat cat or some cousin in between. It's thick in the body because both of the descriptions that my mother and grandmother had said it looked like a Rottweiler in the body. It was really wide, really thick, kind of mastiff-like. Not as tall, slightly stockier legs, real hair, long hair, like collies have on the backs of their legs and along its back haunches, but it had a lion tail, very chimera-like. So there are some potential ancient representations of things like this that survived, and we just haven't figured out yet what they represent. They're probably not representing a modern animal, potentially. Especially when you get back into ancient Greece, ancient Mesopotamia, ancient Etruscans, ancient Basque world. You get into any of those really, yeah, you get strange stuff showing up in the architecture, in the sculptures, stories, etc., all of it. Homer's Odyssey, read all of those ancient texts, you run across some bizarre stuff. The Aeneid's got really weird descriptions of things. Um, Works and Days by Theogenes has some bizarre descriptions. Pliny the Elder has some weird classifications of a whole bunch of cryptids. He classified 26 different varieties of Bigfoot throughout the known world at that time. In Germany, in Northern Africa, in Egypt, in India, etc. In Egypt, he even documented the Tengu that trained baboons for the ancient Egyptian pharaohs as being a talking humate primate man, which is very similar to the descriptions of the lady's grandfather. I interviewed her up in Washington. Her grandfather was a primate-looking man. He had red skin, a slightly larger teeth, a completely hairy body. He had a completely different diet. When his tribe started dying out back in the 20s, the men bought brides in the local villages and towns and had children. It turned out that he had keratin poisoning from his diet because he ate only crayfish and wild tubers like potatoes and parsnips and carrots and stuff, which is the same diet as Gugwe have. Also, he had cataracts. So there's some ancient species that have probably been around far longer than we think. Anyway, I'm straying from the topic here. Yep, Bengal cats. Black spots, mouth. Yep, spotted bellies and stripes. Yeah, some of the characteristics that the, they described when you're looking at. So India has some bizarre cats. Actually, that whole region, all the way over in Taiwan. So you got cloud leopards. You've got, which they're black and gray and white cloud leopards, depending on season, etc. And there's also been spotted now a blue cloud leopard. There are blue lions that are naturally blue-black. They're almost extinct, or maybe they are. They used to have a white lion. They had a cream-colored lion. that was reported to be 12 to 15 feet in length, probably some sort of a cave lion, that were all tiger-like. They were lions, but they were tigers. They had ruffs. They had a lot of the characteristics. Now, these are things that are incredibly ancient. They're not modern. In the modern tigers in India, there are black, blue, um, the tawny ones that we're always used to in the savannas. They have adapted for the regions they live in. And because the Klickatat cat lives in the shadows and the shade of the hoodoos a lot, you know, it's not magic, it's not connected to voodoo or anything. It's a formation of rock, geological thing. Um, and it would be their habitat, their environment that would dictate them always being colored in that manner, melanized dark. You know, if they're constantly uh, predating in the night, you know, hunting at night and hiding in the shade and staying cool in the day, they got the right color for their environment. That matches Darwinism, you know. The fittest for its environment survives. Okay, cosmic. This ape cat is an example of how they are so many hybrids, variations, genetic admixtures, chimeras. Yes, but they're not modern. When you start examining some of the stuff that's come around on our planet due to mass extinctions and what came before mass extinctions, even in the small percentage of petrified fossils that we have, there's some bizarre stuff out there, guys. There was a time in really, really ancient, like, I think it was 3.6 billion years or something, around the time we were collided with. Uh, there were some strange little life forms. And there's a theory going around that after that first collision and when those things died out, some of them actually survived. They were really minuscule, small protozoa type creatures. The theory is that they became uh, about a, I think it was 200 million year period of like mammals that weren't quite mammals, that were fish that weren't quite fish, that were peculiar. And once we dried out enough to have land, they reiterated again. Now, I've got to go back through those generations, but that's all a peculiar set of life forms right before the Ordovician period, then right around the Ordovician period. Ordovician period. And I've got to get into more detail about different epochs and the life forms, and I'm going to have to do some. I'm going to have to get you guys some picture books to show you what the heck was on our planet, so that some of this stuff will make sense. And to try to pin down some timelines where some of these bizarre creatures could still be surviving from incredibly ancient times. Mind you, they are all probably on the extinction level at this point. You know, we're probably not going to find any of these in great number anywhere. But maybe a few hundred here or there we might want to try to learn about before they're gone. Because I've taken a few pictures of some very bizarre black cats in this area. One of my targets this summer when I'm going up with the mixed group is to get pictures of their kitty cats, because one of them has a very funny looking pink nose, and it's got persimmon yellow-green eye shine like a cat. Some cats have red eye shine. Some of that is diet, and no, animals don't change their eye color with eye shine. Eye shine is based on the mineral content in the mineral cups at the back of the eye that reflect the image, increase the photon capture of light, color and definition. When they're tapelucidum, expose a certain membrane to that cup. They're able to see in extra spectrums because they are able to take in more information. And it's more directly straight into their visual cortex and processing center here. You know, center, mass, back of the brain, right between the eyes. It's where you brain and your eyes contact and they make the reflected image and work it out. So when eye shine is occurring, you're seeing into the infrared spectrum, ultraviolet spectrum. If I can get my eyes to open at night, like on an absolute black, dark, moonlit night, no moonlit night, I mean, excuse me, pitch black, dark of the moon, if you've walked up a trail 30, 20 minutes, even as maybe as far as 2 hours ahead of me, I can still see the blue ultraviolet light emitting from your track. I've had it happen a couple of times. It's just an automatic. If I'm in pitch black and a Bigfoot tries to walk up on me or is standing in front of me, I can still see it. It looks like a brown mass to me, and I can see hair, I can see muscle. It's like being in a black room trying to develop. It would be as if you were in a black room trying to develop film under red light and you've got welding glasses on, but you can still see everything. Maybe sunglasses for you guys. I can see some detail, but I've got to be within like 4 or 5 feet. I got to be able to reach out and almost touch them. But when they walk away, I can see their footprints on the ground. I can see the energy left. It's just the way my eyes work as far as I can tell. And if these buggers have that, you know, if these ancient cats, animal, anything that has eye glow, might have the ability to see like I see. Anyway, back to the questions, because I'm a half hour rattling. Yeah, right? Yeah, I don't know if I want to go up there and investigate them, but I want to see if I can find that trackway, because it's something I'd like to document. Cosmic, what's the scariest, the ape type? Big parts mixed with reptilian Dracos. Well, in lore, there's some bizarre stories that go way, way, way back. They talk about when we were upright walking lizards as human beings, and back to a time when we were dinosaurs. Your soft bones, like your larynx, those are dinosaur bones. They don't harden in us. When you examine all dinosaur bones, they don't harden in the dinosaur either. My grandmother's lore and the Lakota lore suggested that when a child is developing in the womb and it goes through the different stages and it looks like a different thing, if you don't believe me, go look up different stages. You know, look at the sonic images of children developing in the early 10 weeks stages of life. We have gills at some point. Around week 5, we have gills. Some people's gills are fully functional in vitro and will open. We have one stage where we look like a chicken. And we don't even have, we have the presentment of deciduous teeth like dinosaurs. So as we develop in vitro, our old lore suggested that those were our genetic memories of our past survivals of epochs. We looked like ancient lizards 300 million, some odd, 400, 500 million years ago, whatever. The epoch hit. The ones that survived mixed with what died out, came back. What we could find to mate with that was also genetically close enough to us that gave the next species a chance. Additionally, that's also where Liquidolor suggests that stone babies that are born of women aren't dead. They're an egg. My grandmother claimed they were quite literally our modern bodies still trying to replicate a dinosaur egg. The infant doesn't die, it goes into rock state. It becomes mineralized, becomes a chrysalis, and that child takes upwards of 36,000 years to be hatched before it can burst out of its shell. It was a tradition at one time along just 200 years ago, not even 150. Lakota women would keep those babies. They would nurture them. They would tell stories to them. They would warm them in the sun. And if you take those little chrysalis babies out and you warm them in the sun, you'll discover that it's an egg. They'll turn. You can see them moving inside the egg. So don't believe modern science knows everything. It was also claimed that the longer that those little chrysalis babies stayed with the family and the mother, the better chances it would be born as a good being. It would have that initial love and nurturing, the affection, the warmth. And if you abandon it, you threw it away, it would go through remorse. It would become angry, and it would not come out good. It would be a crawler, it would be a wraith, it would be a pitiful creature, not a more human one. And the reason why the egg cycle was so long is because it would take that long for, after a mass extinction, for enough life to come back so that it would be born into a world that it could survive in potentially. But that's just lore, right? Okay, Billy, I wonder if they small abilities, big. I don't know. It's a possibility. I mean, if dinosaurs were something more than we realize and more intelligent than we realized, God only knows how you would have adapted to try to survive living next to those things. Because until 66,000 million years ago, primordial man, ancient men lived with all kinds of bizarre stuff, around all kinds of stuff. Proto-humans had to survive some really harsh environments. Because modern man's only been around for like 8 million years. And the Vedas from India, they go back 6 million years. So my guess is the Vedas are potentially the first written form of an attempt to document oral lore. Because when you read them, it's one long storyline, one long poem. And that is the same way I had to learn my lore. It's one long story, one long poem. When you look at the Druids, same thing. A master Druid learned the lore from the beginning to the end. And it's memorized. So it would make sense, I'm sorry, that the clay tablets in Mesopotamia don't hold water against 6 million-year-old documentation in the Vedas, the Ramayana, etc. They even have drawings of 6-tusked elephants that were 10 times the size of any modern elephant that went extinct 65 million years ago. So either that text alone is not in the right place, or our 8 million marker is off, there's something amiss there, or those texts are an account of something that that was before or around the time of the 65 million year old APEC. The extinction event there. So maybe we didn't figure out how to write, and that's all been oral, traditional lore until 6 million years ago when they could write it down. But when you look at the archaeological record, we'll get into more details like that. That's why I'm kind of chunking this stuff down the way I am. I don't know, I'm probably going to have to do somewhere between 20 or 30 discussions on this kind of stuff to try to get enough of it to correlate, to give you guys a picture of what my grandmother understood. Like I said, if I ever tried to write all this stuff down, it'd be like a freaking textbook. Or maybe a collection of textbooks. Cosmic Pyramid is pretty intimidating. Oh yeah, they are. Alright guys, I think you're getting ahead of me. I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer everybody's questions, but let's get back into a little bit more information about this pair of cats. Because, and one of the other things is, both my native grandmother, my uncle, even I went once. My mom took me when, God, I think that was for my 6th birthday. My cousin, she took us down to see the La Brea tar pits. So there are, something like 2,000 or 3,000 skeletons of dire wolves, saber-toothed tigers, etc. that's been recovered. There's also something like 30 metric tons of soil that hasn't been analyzed yet because we don't have the tech to do it, so they've been storing it from the digs. So when technology is developed, we can determine what kinds of plants and protozoa or food or dung particles or tool pieces or whatever might be left in those areas. Whatever was the contents of the animal's stomachs, for instance, will probably be in some of that mess. And could tell us diets and stuff. Let me turn this back around. Doggo over there. Hi, doggo. All right. Yeah, baby. You good girl. So, to get back to this, and I'm sorry I didn't do a very good job here at making good color distinction. Yellow for saber-tooth and orange for Klickatat. I probably should have used red and yellow or something. So I'll try to put it into better light. Let me get over here though. So around the time, and the material that I've been utilizing is these little maps of our planet are from the Rhymes and Reason Academy. This is, younger middle school teaching material. So 20 million years ago, mammals and birds continued to evolve into their modern forms, and the first humans appeared in Africa. Earth was dry, cooling, ice caps developed, and the poles again. And it looked very, very modern in its overall characteristics. So this is the time 20 million years ago when all these cats were all over the place. So 23 million years ago, the saber-toothed tiger came into existence. And it took over the entire north-south continent as the top cat predator. The whole dang thing. And in Europe, from what I remember, it was all through this region, up and through China, across up into Russia. Don't think it was in this region, though. I don't think there are any fossils found in Australia. All of their fossils are marsupial, completely different epoch that they survived, a much more ancient epoch. Alrighty. And what things look like 65 million years ago, planetary-wise, before the mass extinction. They should have wiped all this stuff out. And that would have been the 65 million years ago. After the KT extinction event, new mammal groups emerged following the spread of plants. That's another reason why the Liberia tar pits are so important, is because of all of the pollen and fibers that are captured, seeds, stuff like that, in dietary breakdown that, if you can't find a fossilized form of it, you have to go for the digested form. Earth was warm, humid, and there was no ice at either of the poles, so it was tropical, very tropical. So by 20 million years ago, when modern man started popping up, or more modern, Australopithecus, upright walkers, this is more what our planet was like. And that was the time of these big cats. So, my grandmother's lore. Let's see if I can get a little better here. Light on this. My grandmother's lore, and you can go look at maps, and you can definitely figure out where saber-toothed tiger was. They were everywhere, all over America. My grandmother's lore said, though, and she thought that her lore came from about the 130 to maybe 145,000 range, back to now. She claimed that there had been, I think this is also Miocene period, so let me think. No, Neogen? There was another epoch. There was a cooling period. Another, like, low temperature dip somewhere in here, between this timeline that she thought it could be the outside of to the inside of. Somewhere in this middle portion, there was another cold portion that occurred, and that put extra pressure on the pre-existing population. So my grandmother claimed that the remaining population of the Klickatat cat started reducing because there was too much push by the sabers and too much push in their hereditary hoodoo breeding ground. So what she claimed was, as the temperature dropped and competition became more fierce for food, the sabers were taking out more Klickatats to the Klickatats' ability to defend. They seemed to be a far more docile cat than the sabers were, according to her. And they were driven, she said that the lore that she remembered said that they were all over, like up through Anchorage area, Alaska, over into the Triangle, down, crossing into the permafrost areas up in northern Alberta, down through the top of the northern Rockies, especially in the hoodoos that were on the eastern side, because there are a couple of massive hoodoo locations. She said those were old territorial breeding grounds for these bigger cats. They did live along the coastline, and there was a finger jut that they really favored that's now dropped off and become islands. And that the the pressure from the saber-tooth came from basically all directions and kind of forced them into really ancient territories. She said that there had been a region in uh, near the South America border with us that's just below the Pueblo regions that had hoodoos that they had lived in, but she didn't think that any had been there for many generations. She was aware, though, that this Columbia River Gorge area and all up through this steppe area where you have the hoodoos, and even in Mount Hood region here in Oregon, they were said to have been at one point. A very thick population in this massive triangular wedge. And she believed that there were still portions of them left here in the Yukon, up in the Okanagan, probably in this, danger zone of Alaska, that Alaskan Triangle. So that was her descriptions of them and her understanding, and I was given kind of a little bit of an outline here. We can rest assured that the red eye shine light of life has always been here. I just don't know how far back they go. I know that the bedrock here, that's 300 million years old, still has Bigfoot tracks in it. So they've been here at least that long. Now, my grandmother claimed or believed that the Klickatat cat came around somewhere around 43 million years ago. I don't know how she thought that. I'm still trying to figure it out. And I'm still trying to understand some of the things she pointed to delineate that. If I figure it out, I'll let you guys know. And if I stumble across something that makes sense, I'll let you know. It might have something to do with the cheetahs that we had here in North America, because we actually had a massive population of cheetahs all through this region as well. And we did have something also that extended down here and into this Baja Peninsula area. And grandmother said there was a time there was a couple of bigger bumps of jetty land here that had cheetah on it. And some of our cheetahs and cloud leopards were black. And I've seen at least one freaking thing that looks like a black cheetah here that has a really beautiful cloud leopard pattern with cheetah spots in the middle of the print of the cloud pattern. God, I want a good video of that thing. I want to be able to show that thing to you guys. And then the funny tigers that I keep finding out in the mixed group. I'm sorry, my hand's shaking. My arthritis is bothering me today in that hand. Let me switch. So, I've got some cats in this area I also want to try to catch with my new lenses. See if I can get some better footage of them. And their eye shine is also prevalent during the day. And to say that animals don't have eye shine during the day is actually not observant. Animals will have eye shine during the day, especially if they have a lot of phosphorus in their diet. They eat a lot of fish, they'll have eye shine. It is not reliant upon darkness to have eye shine, nor is it reliant upon light casting across your eyes to cause light shine. It is probably more prevalent in the more ancient creatures, because I'm supposing that the mineral cups at the back of their tapetum are far deeper and larger than any modern animals, and probably catch a lot more high vibration photon light, and might even have the ability to store and use that light. And the reason why I say that is because my eyes have opened during the day, And people say that they glow. I've seen my eyes during the day in windows. They glow. I look like I have a pair of red dot lasers for eye pupils. So whatever's going on with my eye structure is some variation of what goes on with Bigfoots. So I don't think it is potentially an abnormal thing for archaic animals or creatures. It just probably doesn't present itself in the same way in modern animals, because modern animals didn't originally adapt to the severe environment differences that more archaic things would have had to have adapted for. You know, we had a problem with predation on us in ancient times until, mind you, the saber-toothed tiger supposedly didn't die out. It supposedly died out 10,000 years ago, except back in the 30s, this lower region still had saber-toothed tigers in all the southern part of the United States. There are even sightings somewhere over here. But there's also a deep ravine somewhere here in the southwest that my native grandmother was taken into by elders. And I'm not going to tell you exactly where it is, because it's on tribal land, and I'm not going to expose where those saber-toothed tigers are. But there were still about 200 of them alive, according to my grandmother, in that particular area. And the elders were aware, and they were trying to keep them alive and keep them out of the way. So she got to see a saber-tooth survivor, you know. She didn't see it from too close, but she did see it. As part of the medicine person's training, you go to these places, you eyewitness these things, you are told the lore. It is not a campfire story. You're not sitting around jawing with the public on what you... It's not fairy tales. Not by any means. And each tribe, each tribal area is aware of its cryptids. They're aware of their archaic animals. And in fact, this government classifies things like Tyrannosaurus rex and Plesiosaur as archaic animals or historic animals. They probably do the same thing with Bigfoot. If you start pulling files on archaic animals, you might find something more interesting. You know, for you that one. Don't look for Bigfoot. Look for the PC term they're hiding them under. Alright, and then lastly, I'm going to get back a little bit through the von Fitzner's Fittinger lists. Von Petzinger's work. Alright. I kind of did a brief, like 20-minute or 10-minute long video. I want to get into a few more details, because you can recognize a lot of these images already from Trail Talk. In fact, some Bigfooters have even taken pictures of this particular image. So this one is medicine, meaning a cure. Somebody is leaving a medicine pouch down to treat somebody, or somebody is asking for a cure. If they were referring to a medicine man, in fact, here, let's graph this out for you guys, because I know some of the generations after this particular symbol. So let's just make some notes. So if you're... God dang, my camera don't like me. Ah. All right. If you're looking for medicine, this is the image you lay down. If you're seeking a medicine man, somebody to heal you, this is the image you lay down. If you know where a medicine man lives, or you're going to send your kid to go to school there, this is what you'll draw. It looks like a big flower. But it's just the direction. You tell places and understandings. They're not words, they're concepts. That's what Trail Talk is. It's concept sharing. And if you all understand the concept of the area because you all know the same lore and share the same culture, you know where the medicine man lives, you can tell somebody about him, and you know how to ask for medicine from him. It's all relational. That symbol. Let me go over here to my notes again. Because, you know, we've already covered some of this stuff in previous classes. It can it can also mean Thunderbird. Let me explain why. So this is what early researchers were able to pin down when they were trying to understand Native American signaling. They got that far. Mountain. I'm glad they figured that out. And I'm sorry I laugh so much. It's, to me, such a huge joke in a really bad way. Oh, and this actually represents saber-toothed tiger because that was the biggest predator of ours 20,000 years ago. They killed us and ate us more than any other predator on the planet at the time. We were candy. So that's the reason for this obscure looking marker that is supposed to represent the saber-tooth, the thing that hunted us all the time. Alrighty, so let's get on to this mark. This one most likely represents both mountain and a refuge point where maybe thunderbirds lived. Because it looks like a big bat flying in the sky, kinda. It's the way pterodactyls' wings flap. They flap like a bat's. So on their upward swoop, they have the downward tilt to their wings. They look very strange when they're flying. And because they live in mountains, it's also an associative. They live in cave systems deep in the top of hoodoos and other crags. They burrow into the hillside. Papua New Guinea, they have confirmed that. So by pioneer days, this had just become the symbol for mountain because no pioneer wanted to listen to our lore about thunderbirds or our warnings. Instead, they shot them. So you get this translation in trees. You'll see trees with this marker all the time. That means the Thunderbird family group lives there. I have given you an example of that. I've shown you a tree with that exact same marker. The center had been removed. I know why the center of that particular tree was removed. When the groundskeeper in that area realized there were cryptids from an ancient tribe living there, he didn't like that fact, and he cut the middle of it out because he didn't like the devil living next to him. So, if I might sound a bit pissy about certain attitudes out of people in the past, it's because the attitude still persists. And it's still a form of religious discrimination brought about by ignorance. Alright, next is you will see a companion style marker. That means Thunderbird, but it actually has a secondary meaning as well because of the nature of its shape. This particular symbol and variations of it means that they keep dinosaurs as pets. And this is the track shape of the dinosaur that they keep. I've given you an example of a track type that is three-toed with a little back spur. If I'd gotten a male track, it has a back spur. So far I've gotten a hen and a chick that are both female, no back spur. And I've shown you the little dinosaur picture of the head, because it's a very timid little dinosaur. So these things are not unknown. It's just, it's been forgotten because the people that once understood it have all been killed. Alright, and we already understand these. We understand the hashtag. If it's got the little mark, it also means buy sell. That is a kana straight out of Mandarin Chinese. It also has the connotations that you screwed up bad enough, you bought the death penalty by your actions. That's why the hashtag is also the symbol they use when getting rid of a criminal within their community. You bought the bad behavior's punishment with your deeds. And then, you know, everybody knows what you can spare. Dots usually represented constellations or times of year. Now, in the particular cave paintings, and I don't know which caves they got these particular dots out of, it would have been helpful if they would have published the entire area of the wall they were trying to do some research on. Because wherever the cave is that has the representation of Cancer the crab, that particular group probably tended bees. Cancer is when the constellation July, when Cancer is in the sky and constellation and zodiac line up, is when you harvest honey from bees. Honey harvest, they're beekeepers. This one is calculation. See, because you have to know the Big Dipper's location in order to find the North Star. Because if you don't know where to find it, you can't navigate across land or sea. Unless you got GPS, but these guys don't have GPS. They still do it the old-fashioned way. So knowing some celestial bodies and some understandings about, you know, where Polaris is helps. And how to line it up in the sky off constellations to find it. Alright. Again, the whole track thing. This is just a more archaic form. These guys kept some sort of a monkey, probably a monkey that picked saffron flowers or some other particular little thing. Maybe they harvested honey, who knows. Maybe they harvested a particular orchid, a bean, a flower, whatever. Something. And then this was a herd animal. I actually know of a location where there is a petrified track type that shows this particular track in petrified stone. I'll go unbury the damn thing and show it to you. And this, yes, can represent the front door teepee structure where you meet. It can represent a worship structure. If it had the cross poles on top, it would represent a worship center, you know, hunting magic. This later also became the image for mountain and home. Mountain is just this. Okay, so let's go back to the teepee structure. You got the next generation mountain, home or hut, direction or valley is the V. Those are the generations of the symbol from ancient times to now. Some of them don't change. I've just shown you examples of these, and these haven't really changed in their iconography. The little to indicate you counted coup, and this little F backwards to sing the praises of who you've been trading with. I've shown you plenty of modern examples of both of these symbols in Trail Talk. They have not changed. I've even shown you these. You know, hey, don't go there, I'm hunting. Okay. Oh, and if you want to say there were no clouds, you draw a cross. You know, you just X out part of this image saying, you know, how many ever days without clouds we hunted. It's like a minus. Okay. We've already covered this one, symbol for man, but we're going to cover it again so that you guys can tie it into this iconography over here that these people are talking about. Man. Dog man. Fishing hook. Spear. Fishing spear to be exact. People also often represent these or mistake them as directions. North, south, east, west. No, they're tools and people that use the tools. We've all seen the C shape. The C shape can go in any direction. We somewhere back here in this book already covered that concept like a couple weeks ago. The C can be represented backwards, forwards, upside down. Don't matter. It still means fish. You know, and these are some of the other generations of symbols that have already come down. The generations of how you can ask for how much. You know, I've already covered a lot of this material previously. You know, part of what my grandmother did was she gave me pictures of old rocks with petroglyphs on it, and we'd sit for sometimes 2-3 hours a day, and she would tell me what each of the symbols meant. She'd draw the symbol, she'd talk about the generations, what it become, and what it looked like now, what it meant then, what it means now. All they have to do is sit down with any native elder that still knows how to read this stuff, if there's any of them left. Because this was my education. This was the language I was taught. I know, like, fucking, pardon my French, like 138,000 of these symbols that I'm still trying to pin down, correlate, and show everyone. But I need the ground example. I need to be able to find it laid out in sticks before it's relevant. It has to have a proof. Well, anyway, some of this other, you know, if you go up in the Pueblans and you look at the home structure, this is exactly how the home is made. That's how my grandmother explained it. You have your sleeping quarters, you have your food prep quarters, and you have your food storage and your granary. Dogmen even build their homes this same way. I've shown you at least one dogman pit home that had a storage hole with a really nice cover on top of it. This is a really archaic way that ancient people lived. That's why the box, the living room, and the Bigfoot, and in archaic man's lifestyle was where the family got together. It's where you share a meal before you go to bed. Also, these homes sometimes had their entryways through the roof because the predators, during the times those homes were built, could get into the front ones, you know, where you could enter like modernly. Some of those homes are far more ancient and the predators were far more deadly and not modern. at all. And then this guy. Everybody always wants to know about the Y. The Y is a fishing fork, not a not a fishing fork for harpooning a fish, but one to hold a net so you can scoop fish like a ladle. So you stand in the shallows where the fish come. You hold your net below water. You let them come close. You lift the net. You walk to the shore. You dump your net. You go back out. You let them come again. Unless you caught enough the first time. This is how Bigfoot does some of their fishing. The coastal Bigfoot use this emblem, which is literally trying to describe casting a net when you have a drawstring to pull it shut. This is open net. You throw the net, let the fish come, you drag. It's a drag net. Hand-done drag net. But you still have to wade out in the water to cast it. South American islanders, Pacificers, Filipinos used to net this way for fish. It's shore netting. Both of these are shore netting. These are done in the rivers. These are done in the ocean. That's the only difference. You see this Y all over valleys and all over ravines and waterways because they've taken their net with them and just left the pole behind. Native Americans used a variation of this same thing, but we set it on a tripod because it would be too heavy for us to lift the fish, several hundred pounds at a time, out of the water without an extended long pole, a tripod, and some extra counterweights to make this thing work. We borrowed that concept from the Bigfoot we lived around. So none of these images are a mystery, and I don't think they're a mystery to you now. I mean, you've seen so much of this stuff in so many different ways. I haven't shown you some of the drawings yet. I need to get those pictures out and show them to you. Alright, now that I've taken an hour to explain this stuff, let me turn this around and try to read back through some of these questions. And I hope I didn't brainsorp you guys too bad. I'm going to be pushing a lot of information at you real quick. News Live is going to be on the plesiosaur in its known territory. And the reason why I have such a detailed little drawing of that little critter, I don't have his map drawn up yet. The regional maps. And all of these lives are going to go into the regional map playlist. Because, well, it's going to be a big body of information. So this little guy, I'm just going to let you look at this drawing. Actually was, maybe 5 hours or 6 hours dead by the time I found it. And it did have some barnacles on it. It was very peculiar looking. To me, it looks so much like not what I expected. Not what I expected at all. And it was baby. It was little. Now, these things had live birth. They're a mammal. But it didn't look completely like a mammal, and it didn't look completely like a dinosaur. It was some sort of a transitional looking thing. It had some characteristics much like a dino, but it had characteristics also outwardly that looked a lot like a seal. It looked so peculiar. And I do know where its body is, or was. I also know where there's a skeleton of one that's about 23 inches long. So anyway, we'll get into that guy next next Saturday. and I'll tell you all about that particular thing. Um, and when I did find it, and I did see, I mean, I've already talked about this little plesiosaur. I talked about watching a Bigfoot out in the Puget Sound, rowing a log across the sound at like 5 in the morning. I got there at 4. I was trying to sneak up on him because they knew he foraged around 4 a.m. So I was going to try to sneak up on this guy, and he was not where I expected him to be. I expected to be up on the ridge line, on the overhang point, or up in his little tree basket. I was going to go grab him out of his tree basket, go take a look at him. Nope, he was not where I expected him. He was down in the flipping water, rowing a log around in the Puget. So I got up into his hang point, and I watched what he was doing for like an hour. And he was following this school of something around. I couldn't figure out. I thought it might be salmon or something that had come in from the size of him. And I wasn't seeing a lot of definition. It was just the kind of the way they moved. The little bit of ripply, and occasionally I'd see like a back here or there. So I thought the thing was fishing. Until it pulled a plesiosaur baby out, stabbed its neck, laid it across the front of the log. Then I realized he was probably tending a school of these things. It's likely that they either eat them or raise them for some reason. I think the reason why we don't have a massive missing animal issue here on the surface is because they still raise their food sources and probably still trade the meat. Because if these are some sort of more like an archaic seal, because it had a blubber layer, not a very thick one, but it did have one. About a 1/4 inch for its size, and that's actually a pretty good fat layer for a creature that small. The cat liked it. It was a cat that had been predating on its side when I found it. And yeah, I did flip its back flipper up to see if it was male or female or if it had any genitalia. And it did have a little poo hole and a slit, an exclamation point, so it was female. But it was such an odd mix. Yeah, we'll get into that. Alright, let me see if I can answer some questions here. And yeah, I know where the pod is, and I can go recover either the skeleton, because I covered it, or potentially that body, or maybe some other thing that I could find for you, if you really want to try to go against the scientific community with a freaking body that's only a few hours dead. Pretty sure that would get confiscated in some sort of non-disclosure thing and then guns stuck to my head, likely. Connie. Of the Klickatat Cat, a couple of years ago there were sightings, and actually, Maggie's outdoor outfitter shop up on the Columbia River Gorge takes reports of Klickatat Cat sightings and plesiosaur sightings and any other cryptid, Bigfoot, etc. that people experience up and down that gorge area. They have a report site you can go on to, and I don't know if you can publicly view it, but I know that they do take reports. You can probably call them. They've got a public phone number you can look up online. It's Maggie's Outfitters. If you want, I'll maybe just take a screenshot and post the picture of their information on the post sections of my YouTube page. I would like to be able to compile this stuff from my post section, but there are no options to do that. The program's pretty limited. You can't change a picture once you've uploaded it. You can only change the text. You can't save them in files or compile them in any way into a playlist or a viewing list, which I wish I could do, because I would love to have the ability to do a picture file folder in my post section where, you know, I could take a picture of the kana on the ground, make the translation, show you the written form, and give you the meaning, and then, you know, have a file that you can just take them and you could print them out. But so far, that's not been the case. The other option I've been looking into is having them printed as a deck of cards. Uh, the only problem is I haven't found any printing location that will let me do 52 different symbols on the backs of a playing deck, or one that will let me do like a biological flashcard thing. I'm gonna have to look into some place that maybe does flashcard printing for kids' schools or something. See if I can find some sort of printing house where I can have at least some sort of a flashcard scenario done up. And maybe I can do that and maybe sell those things if they aren't too horrifically expensive to do. I gotta talk to some of the local printing shops, see what I can work out. Okay. Yes, Lisa. It seems like there are always primate type features to a lot of these things. Well, and that's one of the factors in my head that makes me think that we're going to take these things and push them back into the anthropological and geologic record. They have to be very primordial. They all have to be from definitely a pre-epoch period somewhere. But the crazy thing is that the bone record that we have and the evidence that we've gotten so far and the new stuff that's, you know, now pushing things back even here in America, you know, now they're realizing that there's been 130,000 years of occupation of America by natives. The land bridge theory, just throw that the heck away, never existed. um, I don't think we have enough to actually build a really good picture of what they might be. When I was taking my anthropology courses, the robustest line, around the time that we broke off from chimpanzees, and around the robustest time, which is I think what 3.7 million years ago or something like that. I gotta look that up. Archaeologically, that would be the closest, except that doesn't match just the petrified bedrock tracks in this area. I mean, one location is 47 million years old, and it's got Bigfoot tracks petrified in it alongside dinosaur tracks. A nice sized velociraptor track, actually. And then I've got another location where where the bedrock in that particular river system here is like 138 million years old. And it's still got Bigfoot tracks petrified in it. And then south of here, you know, I know a location where there's bedrock from Pangea, 314 million years old. And it has Bigfoot tracks, human tracks, giant tracks, dogman tracks, giant elk tracks, horse tracks, something that looks like a freaking bobcat track. Things aren't adding up. We don't have enough geological evidence. We're not considering the bigger perspective. We're relying so heavily on fossils that we're ignoring bedrock. Bedrock with evidence in it. I think we sold ourselves a little too hard on Darwinism, unfortunately. I think that's kind of lockstepped us into this concept that nothing happened, nothing survived. The last major extinction event, the Pleistocene era, 65 million years ago. But remember, 25% of the population of the things on the planet survived. 25% is a huge number. And among that, there had to have been quite a few ancient things that survived. And it had to have been because of where they lived. Maybe they were, under sea, or maybe they were deep in caves or protected ravines. Maybe somewhere in uh, glaciers. And maybe their habitat, maybe they lived in the hoodoos and were able to escape into some sort of cave system. Maybe they retreated to some area that preserved them, or maybe they were asleep somewhere underground when this stuff happened. Or maybe they were aquatic or avian where they could get out of the air or out of the way, they could move. So that there's a possibility a lot of stuff has survived just in really isolated pockets that we don't know about. And the fact that we don't know about it leads us to kind of look at it in a more mythological storybook way, or in a kind of a reality denial way. uh, but we really need to start considering it, and we need to start educating ourselves about these sorts of things, because I don't think modern science has much to do with this. There's too much cave art. There's too much ancient, even skeletal remains, and some of the new finds, and some of the new DNA. We're learning that we've got far more bigger variation in things and people that we're related to that we weren't aware of until we started, trying to pull apart our own DNA and understand our genetic background, which is leading to a lot of avenues of we don't know what the heck is down this avenue. And tons of new classifications for very specific uh, genetic lines. I mean, there's a guy in Yemen, I think it is. His genetic line goes back 250,000 years. That's a long way for modern human. Most of us don't know who we are. But anyway, so I think there's a lot more to this puzzle, and I think it's going to take science probably another 100 years to figure it out at this rate. So I'm just kind of hoping that y'all take me serious enough to preserve what I present. Because I think this year, with showing you guys and the detail I'm hoping to get into about my grandmother's lore, should make some of that stuff really clear. I'm also thinking about maybe doing a playlist with videos in it on Native American hand talking and the language types and variations of ways of talking that could be used with the Bigfoot, because they still use a variation of the Plains Indian hand talking, and it was trade language. It was a way to... It's sort of like if you're in the woods Doing this and shifting your eyes, is that more noticeable than that? When the Native American signals, you only use this. It's because the whites of your eyes move. You can be noticed by an animal that sees that. If your chin and mouth is obscured by plants, it becomes an incredibly subtle movement. But the person watching you for the signal can see it. You have to remember, it's still those kinds of tactics and behaviors that these people live by. It's another reason why, we got to get into more information about their religion and some of their holy sites and areas to be aware of, and don't go into them. It can end badly, especially if it's a religious site or if it's a holy site like a burial site or a remembrance site, a memorial. Some groups are forgiving, some are not. You gotta be able to distinguish which ones are not. Mountain boogers, they're not forgiving. And gug whales, they like to sneak up on you. Even when they're friendly, I don't trust them. Some people live in their territory, you can hunt alongside of them, but do not ever try to rob them of game or take their kill. They'll hunt you for the rest of your life. It never stops. They will hunt you until they catch you. And they will remember their entire life. Mm. No, I had many, many years of education. It took me 22 years to learn all this stuff about the Bigfoot, about all the different cryptids that live here. And some of the stuff that we think are cryptids are not cryptids. The Wendigo. It's a curse. It's an entity. It's a possession. When it's the big thing running around with the deer skull that can grow, that's the Algonquin myth of it, the Algonquin lore of it. That's when it hasn't taken you over yet to make you into its little zombie. It's a form of possession. And for all I know, it might be some form of, uh, mushroom, spore, and fungal infection that causes takeover like robotic. You become a walking zombie because you walk into the wrong spore patch and you get infected by a cyanospore that can infiltrate your neuron system and control you. Because there are spore out there in this world that can do that to other animals and other creatures. It wouldn't be unlikely to assume it's some really remote areas or in some cave areas. You may not want to go in there. You may be exposed to something that can do something like that to you. It would technically be a parasitic illness at that point, caused by a fungus. Maybe that's what the rotting deer, the knot deer, maybe they've gotten into a spore patch of some sort of fungus that's walking them around like a zombie. If it can be done to an insect or an ant, I wouldn't think that, it wouldn't be impossible for a spore to key in on mammals. I don't want to be exposed to it, though. I don't want to be a Wendigo. So you can go with the curse explanation, or you can maybe go with the concept that the curse was trying to talk about something and remember something, or to explain something that they didn't have a full grasp of yet. Although the fact that the Wendigo spirit wears a deer horned or antlers, which is the same stuff that you see on the ant's back and the wasp's back. You'll see what looks like antlers or horns protruding. It could be a loric representation of an individual who had been severely infested by the spore enough that they started growing the mushroom out the back of their head or out the front of their head. We don't know what kind of ancient things might still be in the ground, even. We don't know what kind of bacteria live in some areas. We don't know where some spore live. We don't. Some areas we've never gone into. We have no idea what kind of life forms might be there. How are we going to know? Well, and the whole memory wipe thing, too. Did you know that ninjas in ancient Japan would use various powders and compounds and make these little breakable eggshells that would expose you to different powders? Some of them would paralyze you. One, a pufferfish variant, if blown in the face, will blank your memory for the previous 2 hours to 24, depending on how much neurotoxin you put in the powder. But I can't handle that one. So part of what's maybe going on too is that people are being exposed to stuff. I know of at least 2 times while I've been out. Oh my God. Now make it 3. 4. Over the last almost 20 years, about 18 years, I've had 4 incidences out tracking in the field, recording Bigfoot and other things, where I have been shot at with blow darts. Had a dart about the size of a long toothpick with a piece of bunny fluff on the end of it. Caught in my hair one day. Had some bizarre stuff on the end of it. I think I kept that one. I've had 2 times where something had been shot at my leg with a blow dart. One of them, if it would have made it through, I would have been paralyzed because it was a cowberry thorn. Cowberries can kill you if you prick yourself with a thorn. And I think the other one was in my sleeve. It got stuck in my sleeve. It was a spike about the size of almost the size of a skewer, a small skewer, maybe 4 or 5 inches long. So some of these things still use blow darts too. And they still have a very good understanding of poisons along with cures. So some of the stuff that people are experiencing out in the wild as researchers may be exposure to substances that they don't know are in the air. They could be getting exposed to some sort of a little dart that they're not aware of, don't pay any attention to, or take account of. If they're getting stuck by something that looks like a tree spike, they're probably not going to pay any attention to it. It's not going to look out of the ordinary to them. So some of it might be you're getting exposed to stuff that can't even be classified. I mean, if they're for argument's sake, hypothetically, if there was some poison excreting gland on this thing somewhere and you knew you could use it as a sedative, I think you'd probably use it, wouldn't you? I doubt it has anything like that. But God only knows what else they've got. If they're raising these flicking things for potential food. I know that my grandmother's thunderbird flock had neurotoxin hooks in their feet. You don't get territorial with a male, you'll die because it's a one shot. It's like a shrew bite. You're dead. You got 10 seconds, maybe 15, because it's a neurotoxin. And they got two little spikes in their central toe. And then they got their breeding hook, because they're a little velociraptor, but they also have a pair of poison sacs. See, these things were far more specialized to the areas that they lived in than modern creatures are. Because those areas, those environments don't exist anymore, but their adaptations have remained. Connie, so I wonder if there is any connection with these Black Panthers that have been seen. Pull up pictures. Oh, yeah. I've been wondering that myself, Connie, because in the mixed group, there are two different black cats, maybe three with that group. There was one that looked very much like just a black panther, like a mountain lion. I saw it nursing his babies. And then in another area, I saw one that looked way more like a tiger juvenile with a mastiff-like body. So two different body types? I don't know. Male, female as species? I don't know. I've got to get more pictures of them. I have to observe them more. I have to find some tracks. I found dung from the cheetah one, but I haven't found dung from the big black ones yet. I don't know what the dung looks like yet. And I haven't found tracks yet, other than the one kind of kidney bean oval, what looks like a god dang saber-toothed tiger print. Last year on the hang point, made a video of it, showed the track, and explained that's not a cougar track. Cougar tracks look like a big house cat track. This thing had a kidney bean paw pad, 4 toes, not 5, so it's not a bear. Bears have 5, no claws. And, like 9 inches across and 7 inches deep, so it was way too big for a cougar. Cougar tracks around here never get over about 5 inches. 4 is average. If you get one that's getting 5, you're getting a big old male, and he's going to usually be kind of territorial. But I've got a lot of questions, and I still need to do a lot of legwork and a lot of lens work. Because where I found that big kidney bean shaped putty tat track, I don't want to be too close to it because it was a known predator to people. And I don't really feel like getting hooked around the neck by its jaw. Because according to old lore, the reason why I had the big neck opening, or the mouth opening, and the way it unhinged was so it could just clamp us, pop us, and walk off with us. Their front teeth were specialized to fit around our neck. I don't want to test that theory. Thank you. So the in that area, I'm going to try to do with that big lens so I can kind of zoom in and maybe figure out where it sits in the bush line and get a real good look at it, hopefully. Maybe I can focus in on it enough to make some sense of what's there. And then I'll also be able to catch some language captures in that area because I think if that is a saber, it's being managed by a cryptid of some kind. Because you'll hear talking and you'll hear what sounds like signaling. Now, if you go look at traditional ways Chinese farmers shoe duck, herd ducks, they use slats of bamboo and they swat them together. Makes a very distinctive sound, kind of like when you're doing the I can't remember when you have that little playing on drums. It's kind of like that. It's got that slappy sound to it. So I'll hear that sound where I hear and have seen what looks like potentially a saber track. And I've heard speaking. And Hu'uyat was spoken in the first 3 seconds of one of my videos in that region. Unfortunately, I talked over some of it. But Hu'uyat is pre-Edo period Japanese, and the term means another human to chase, or another person to chase. So I think the animal has a handler, a caretaker. So anyway, I need to do some more legwork there. I need to make some more audio recordings there, try to get some video at a safe distance if I can find an access point, because they sit, both of those interaction areas are kind of pinned back in a corner where you have to go by it. There are not too many angles unless you're compromised in below. There is only one angle from above. If I don't go off trail, and I'm not allowed to go off trail there, so there's only one angle from above where I can look back into that particular location at distance, and the closest one is a little too close, only a couple 100 feet away, but that's the hang point. So I'm going to try at the further distance, which is about 600 feet. Then I'm going to move up. But moving up that 200-foot level makes me a little leery feeling. And I don't care if it's a public place, and I don't care if people walk through there. Once you hear the stuff in the area, and you occasionally hear what and see what happens, that's why I want to do some filming at distance first, because I want people to understand they're in your public areas. Now, you can probably trust them during the day, but I wouldn't trust them at night. Probably why most parks have, and why most forests and most hiking trails, if you're not completely out in national forests, have curfews, 10, 11 o'clock. That's so whatever critter the government doesn't want to talk about, the parks districts don't want to admit, and the rangers don't want to think about, it's because that's when they can go out and hunt. And you don't know anything about it because you're asleep and work on two schedules. All I know is that everything that I've run across so far has been a physical creature. There ain't no smoke and mirrors out there, guys. Now, these are my understanding, even in the lore. They're things that have survived from ancient times. They've survived through different epochs, and they have managed to adapt and just come forward with us in time. They're the only thing is that the governments these days hide them from you, and they have been hiding them from you for 150 years. You know, when we started expanding and modernizing, all of a sudden, reality became a myth. That's the only difference. They've always been there. They're nothing new. It's just we're less aware now than we were 150 years ago. And we're really unaware here in America because so much of that lore has been completely destroyed by the extinction of tribes that carried it. And we're hitting the 2 hour mark, guys. So if you got any questions, let's start putting them in all caps or put maybe a big red question mark. If you're talking with each other, go ahead and do your thing. But if you're wanting a question answered, maybe throw a red question mark in front of it. Well, and you know, when you start looking at the way our planet developed and the transitional periods it's gone through, and you start comparing what was around, like we had an explosion of primates in the last mammalian period. You know, a lot of primate variants came up in a couple of different timelines. It's likely that in those timelines, in those regions of time in our geological history, that's probably where some of these modern cryptids come from. Dogmen, though, some of them I think go way further back. At least 300 million years, 314 probably. So, that's a pretty good chunk of history that we don't know anything about. Sorry, I'm being silent here for a minute. I'm just trying to read through. Remember. Remember forever. Wow. Yeah, he only saves on Sunday, though. Unfortunately. And, in all actuality, if you think about it, the Sumerian texts, some of the Egyptian texts, even the Hebrew texts could be seen as, the attempt of documenting oral lore. Even the Quran could be seen in that way. Yeah, because all of those books did come within a few years, a couple thousand years after the epoch. The last one, Younger Dryas event, none of those books are older than the ability to write again. Because none of them are written in the Bigfoot's language. They're all written in modern texts. It means those people had to rediscover writing again. So those are probably just remembrances of being hit by asteroids and trying to describe it and understand it through their religious perspectives. All people had their own religions in those days. There was no universal religion. There was no country with a universal religion in it. All tribes of people had their own creation myths. It didn't matter if they were 200 in number, or 2,000 in number, or 20,000 in number. All creation myths were individual. They weren't shared. They were never the same. In one variation, you've got sky people that come down and you've got 4 or 5 cultures around the world that had that experience. Well, that was their experience for that area. Those were the cryptids that they had contact with. Others have stories about things coming up out of the ground, interacting with them to save them from the last epoch. The Younger Dryas event was only 13,000 years ago. The Bible and other texts are what, 2 to 6,000? If you include Middle Eastern texts. Yeah, come on, guys. Eh, all of those texts look way too much like the ancient texts from the last epoch. It still looks like oral lore being written down in a story form from front to back. The only difference is, you got a few first-hand accounts of some interactions with Jesus. He might have been a lore carrier for all we know. Who knows? We weren't there. We've got afterfacts. And we're still rebuilding our culture. I mean, most of our planet burned just 13,000 years ago. I'll look up the information. I think something like 65% of Earth's creatures and plants and everything died just 13,000 years ago. 65%. That's only 10% difference from the previous one, 66 million years ago. And then we've had epochs in between both of those. I think the biggest thing is we're not aware of how transitional our planet has been, and how long it's been that transitional, and how far back some of this stuff might go and still exist. For criminy sakes, sharks are 50 million years older than freaking trees and plants. They've been here longer than land has been above water, nearly, for criminy sakes. And they still swim next to us. They'll still eat us. They've been here for, what, 357, 450 billion, or million freaking years, excuse me, not billion, million. And we take it for granted. They're a living fossil. I mean, their last adaptation was what, 360 million years ago? And if they can live through all of those epochs, then what else could have lived those planetary destructions? And I'm sure that they've survived this long because they were underwater. Unless your ocean boils, you're gonna live. Unless you're in the impact zone, you're gonna live. And, anything with fresher ears can outdo the sound wave underwater because some of these creatures dive to severe depths. They could survive all kinds of stuff that would have been catastrophic to anything on land. If they go deep enough, or if they're somewhere safe enough. Connie, I have a book writer, okay? And when I do fully retire, however 10, 15, 20 years I live, after the age of 67 or 70, it's going to be nothing but book writing. Believe me. But the other is it's $4,500 a book these days to print them, to publish, and to get a publishing contract. And then you have to do it their way. I can't do it that way. I have too much arthritis and too many time obligations. I have to be able to write when I can. It's part of the reason why I'm presenting information that I'm presenting to you is you also have to go through a process of information compilation, compile all of this stuff. I have so much information in my head, it's freaking ridiculous after 22 years of study on this topic. My education started at age 2. It ended at age 22. 20 years. That's way more than even somebody in grad school. It's like taking grad school twice for a freaking medical degree. And besides, I also need to prove a lot of this. I'm still trying to compare my native grandmother's lore and some of the stories that Uncle Long told me, and some of the stuff that Jentin, the Bigfoot on our mink ranch, told me, and some of the stuff that Guanch told me. And I'm still trying to confirm some timelines. I'm still trying to figure out where some of this lore actually fits into history. Can I fit some of it into history? Is some of it so far back that I have to go to geologic records? In some cases, that's the case. So I'm hoping that, the series that I'm hoping to do here, that I hope you guys don't mind that it's all lives. I mean, you can watch the first half, and when it comes down to the conversation, just don't have to watch it. But, take this information in. The other reason for me doing all these notes and doing all these regional maps and territory maps and where they foraged and the conflicts that they had and the documentation the way that I'm doing is so that I can use this stuff as my notes for my books when I'm writing them. I have to get this stuff out of my head and on paper somehow and make sense of it in the geological record before a book is even worth it. Otherwise, I'll look like an idiot. Alright. I'm sorry I haven't been as attentive to questions this time. Looks like you guys have been really talking amongst yourselves, though, and haven't had too many questions for me. The word Oma. Alright, wait a minute. The word Oma is actually a tribal name of the Bigfoot, like the one on our mink ranch. They're Sabe people. Okay, the things, the teeth, and the sharks, they call themselves the people, or they use another word. Yep, Satya or Saya. Yep. Paiutes also called them the Sitka, and my tribe called them the Sisiya. And there are multiple variations throughout that had contact with them. The name variant, very similar. Sia, Saya, Sitka, etc. Because we did talk about them once we understood they were in our areas. We would have powwow together. Those tribes would get together, and they would talk about the things they knew about them. The elders would get together, and they would counsel about them. And medicine people would talk. So we shared that sort of knowledge. That's why you do get some commonalities, but you'll get a variation in the pronunciation of the name for them. That's why it's important to figure out which name goes to which cryptid, because they're not all the same. There's not just one thing out there. There are a whole bunch of different critters out there that actually have specific names for them that were known, that were lorically understood and culturally shared. Oh, thank you, Beezer. And I'm glad you've got a little understanding of native background. Okay, so Beezer, Aaron von Sweet Home. I was going up a creek. I ran into 4-foot long salamanders. And up Shotgun Creek. I've run up to sea woodpeckers to Navtal. Oh, is that here in Oregon, Beezer? Because those two names sound familiar. Where did you see the badger man, Beezer? 'Cause we got one down here in the valley. What, baby? It's okay. I got you, honey. You're right here. It's all right. All right, the forest people. Like human mixed with the badger, yeah. I know where there are a couple of those. They're throughout this valley in some areas. Sun-faced people live on what they call Sunnyside Hill on the outside of Sweet Home. So you're here in the Willamette Valley, huh, Beezer? Maybe we should get together, 'cause you seem to have a lot of, I've been finding myself to go make a documentary and get back to the places that I've had experiences, these things, since I was 9 years old. I'm willing to help you out if you want to document them. Yeah, I'm 61, so hope you can keep up with me. I don't walk slow, even with a messed up back. Yeah, hey, yeah, Beezer, I'd be willing to help you out if you want to do that sort of thing. Yeah, and yes, cosmic, or Connie, excuse me, a wise stick can mean a friend, meaning that they will help fish for you, they'll take care of you, they'll feed you. Sometimes that is also a symbol for friend. Otherwise, you'll have what looks like a cross symbol, or you'll get a N symbol, Hong, Hon, it means tree friend or friend. There are a couple of ways of writing that or intoning it. Also understand that most of the characters in their cryptid language are present tense. They they write and communicate in present tense a lot. I think that's just an ancient preservation. They will not say, I have sung your praises. They would say, I will sing, so future, or I do sing your praises because of your actions. So there are only like 11 or 12 languages on the planet that are based in that form of present tense communication. And they're some of the oldest languages on the planet. A couple of them, like the Ro language, only has like 11 characters in it, and one of them's a double character. So when you start getting into really archaic languages, there's some commonalities that are with the Bigfoot language. Acts the same way. The language is not so much just words, but representing ideas and thoughts as well, in some cases. Wow, it sounds like you've had some really amazing experiences, Beezer. Do you have a Bigfooter channel up or any kind of documentation going on of your encounters? Northern BC, Canada, Michigan. Sorry, I'm just reading through the conversation. Hopefully, I'm not too boring while I'm doing that. Just trying to keep up a little bit. Interesting. Wow, you guys really have a great conversation going on today. Oh yeah, UK reptilians. No, thank you. They're everywhere over there, from what I understand. Okay, cosmic. Was there another native term for the word medicine? Just about every tribe has a different word for medicine. So, uh, it's a linguistics thing. We say medicine because it's the English word for it. If you're in uh, medieval Europe, it'd be a apothecary. If you're in Great Britain, it's a apothecary. So the word's going to be based upon the language spoken. Whatever that word is for medicines, what it's going to be. And mind you, get two or three tribes together in one area doesn't mean you all speak the same languages here, especially on the West Coast. That was one of the mistakes that was made with Ishi. Though he spoke a language that was very similar to the Yaqui and the Yami languages, there were certain concepts they could not communicate to others because there was no equivalent in those languages. Though they were close, there was still some stuff that couldn't be done, couldn't be talked about. That's why I learned English. But, you know, I think he died of pneumonia while he was trying to record his language, and they were trying to document his language and make some of the first wax tube recordings of spoken native languages. Mind you, he was the last person left in his tribe. His entire tribe and family had already been killed 40 years previous during the, well, I hate to say it, the mass extinction event caused by natives being killed by the thousands here. We went from what was admitted 160,000 native people and over 400 tribes, supposedly. My grandmother said it was a much bigger number and far more tribes. In the space of 10 years, down to 1,632 natives left. Ishi was one of them. The 1,630 that were left were basically, just let go. There weren't enough of them to make a difference anymore, and they were so split and fractured, and all their families were dead. That's what our modern tribes are now from there, and I think we've got like 5 in this area. So 5 family groups, or 5 tribes out of hundreds, are the only ones that survived here in this northwestern region on the coastal line. So just imagine how much lore went with those people. How much understanding of these ancient ways of talking and communicating went with those people. Oh, thanks you. Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate that. Thank you. So it looks like you guys had a good time hanging out here today. I appreciate that. That's really awesome. I hope that you guys have had a good time listening to me jaw on this subject. And yeah, we'll get into way more detail this spring, this fall, and this summer. Like I said, one of the biggest things I'm going to try to do is get some more clean footage. I mean, you saw me stalking through the woods last year doing my scouting videos this year with new lenses. Let's repeat that and get better footage, more prolonged footage, hopefully some footage capturing behaviors, or maybe some more language. So that's this spring, summer, and fall. And with the amount I was able to produce with just a crummy little phone in my hand last year, I'm pretty sure this stuff should be pretty decent this coming season. Cosmic, did Grandma talk about how certain tribes originate from the underground with guidance from the ant people? Yes. She also talked about, like, what do they call it? Los Gatos, cave people there. They're actually, they're actually Ainu from Japan. They're the ones that were afraid to leave the cave once they got here. They're the ones that didn't come out and populate and become part of the Pueblans and Navajo people. They didn't become the Dene or the local populations around the Dene. They didn't. They had spent too many years traveling underground, and there was about 20% of the people that came from Japan that refused to leave the cave. So they have lived, God, for 20, 30,000 years in that cave. I'll get into more detail about that story too. That's why they're so pale or white, and they were known as cannibals because they predate on each other, unfortunately. But that it was just they didn't have boats. They didn't have any other way of getting here from things that had happened over in their land. They were able to get into a cave system that they knew came to this side of the planet. I think it took them like 3 or 3.5 years to go through all the caves that came to that San Jose area. And by then, some of them were so, I guess, shell-shocked by living underground, they didn't want to leave it. Being outside was scary. I guess maybe they'd gotten used to being claustrophobic. And then, yes, there are Hopi stories, but there are Navajo stories about the ant people. Our Lakota and Hunkpapa, we didn't have connections to them in that way. But we do have an ant person in this area, one of the underground variety. So I can at least talk about him or her. I don't know what gender it is. Probably a male, though, if they are the same kind of, structure. If they still have a colony structure, if they still have a queen and they still have, guards and foragers, then hopefully it's the same sort of thing. It'll be a situation like that. That's another one I'm going to try to film. He doesn't, or she doesn't come down too close to where I'm at. That individual likes to stay, a good 1,200 foot back. And they don't seem to move a lot when they do hunker down in that spot. Looks like they sit there, maybe they're foraging on something. So I'm going to just see if I can zoom in on that area when they're sitting back in that little dark groved area and see what kind of behavior of that creature I can catch. Because he does seem to come to that particular location with frequency, at least enough to be noticed. I've seen him a couple of times. Just that last time I finally had the courage to turn my camera on him. Because, I don't go into any area and immediately start filming or thinking something is there. I go in, I scout it. I might scout it 2 or 3 times before I film in it. And part of the reason why I do that is because I want to make sure of the behavior that I'm seeing, Are individuals consistently sitting in an area? I will film though if something is sitting smack dab out in the open. Because I don't have any choice at that point, I gotta document it. Whether I'm familiar with the area or not, I will document an individual sitting in the open. But normally I go in, a couple of times. I see where they stand, I see where they sit. I listen for where I get interactions, where they're talking to each other about me and tapping and informing about me. So I have a kind of a general idea where I will be able to film them at. And then, this last year with the mixed group, I did some experiments just because the group just blatantly sits around in the open during the day. So I did some experiments. I went down and I spent anywhere from 4 to 6 hours just screwing around in the stream bed with my dog, more or less in the same spot, being nonchalant about it, not looking at him, just kind of watching him out of my corner of my eye, just to see if they moved out of the area, if they did anything different, if they got violent in any way. No, they continued to do what they were doing and just kind of watched the dog and I occasionally. Looked up as if, oh, well, okay, whatever. So that group, I'm going to film the living heck out of them with my new lenses because I can't pass up a filming opportunity like that in broad daylight. No way in heck. I'm just reading through a few more questions and seeing if there's any more discussion going on that's interesting to comment on. Okay, Eric, your theory of a fungus infecting humanoids, is depicted in a TV series Last of Us. Wonder where they got that idea. I did not even know they had. I don't watch TV. And I don't even remember the last time I went to a movie house to watch a movie. I, maybe Gone in 60 Seconds was the last movie I saw in a theater, I think. I've been so busy in my life doing this sort of thing and trying to focus on, you know, translating the language and trying to preserve it and trying to figure out how to preserve the lore. I've really not been focused on entertainment. I mean, I'll watch my videos and I'll educate myself online. I'll listen to encounter stories. I'll listen to some VFRO reports, though some of them are kind of make me wonder. It's still information. And I have my assistant writer, my co-author, he just dropped me a link today of a book I already knew about. It's one that my native grandmother had. And it was, I think, written in the mid 1800s or late 1800s, if I remember right. It was an old paperback, kind of dime novel-ish book. And it was an attempt to save lore, but it also shoved a bunch of different tribal lore together under one blanket of tribe and tried to Christianize the concepts a bit. It's actually why my grandmother had me read it. It's part of actually that book, and I think she said there was one other book similar to that came out around that same time. Those pair of books were part of the books that influenced, of all things, the mid 1800s ghost dance and the concept of bringing Christianity and Native American core beliefs together. And the result is it made the government panic because we started praying to God, your Christian God. Yeah, you got all politically stupid for no apparent reason because of a whole bunch of different misunderstandings in the two cultures. And that book was produced around that era and was part of the American social structure at that time, trying to assimilate our lore and our religion into the Christian faith by trying to turn us into the demons of the Bible, while also mixing several tribal lores together and creating a baseline for the story. So it does, at the base of it, though some portions of it are kind of mushed together from different tribal perspectives, the cryptids talked about in the book did exist. They were known creatures. Take the political language and the religious intonation out of it and listen to the article for just the cryptids, which is what my grandmother had me, why she had me read it, and she had me start in this section about the flying heads, because she said they are real, and they are the one of the more peculiar ones. So the cryptids in those books are good descriptions. It's just the mishmash of culture and theosophy that makes it not useful in some ways. I mean, it was an attempt to try to assimilate us, and it led to an unfortunate uprising, because while cryptids started converting and natives started converting and they started joining religious societies like the Dreamer Society and becoming Christian, they brought their cryptid friends with them, sometimes to the religious meetings, which usually got them shot, because they didn't really want the convert. In fact, what was his name? Sandknife, I think was his name. He was a cryptid man, actually. They come under a flag of truce trying to bring his people, and he got shot because of what he looked like. And he was a convert. The one here in the Northwest that was shot, put a bullet right between his eyes. He was 10 foot tall. He was a cryptid man who had converted. He thought that conversion would give him a voice with the pioneers to save his people. It didn't. It just got him killed. So there's a lot of stuff, history-wise, that pioneers didn't talk about, and natives don't want to remember. You know, in some areas, you can find old newspaper articles and advertisements for bounties of anywhere between $5 and $200 for a dead Indian. The $200 for the Bigfoot and the cryptid people. They just don't tell you that. They call them half-breeds instead. And in all actuality, that's one of the reasons why my grandmother had me watch Bugs Bunny. The one little Indian, two little Indian, three little Indian. Oh, that was a half-breed. That was Walt Disney's attempt, because there were actually quite a few artists within the Walt Disney compendium of artists that were aware of histories like that. And there was actually quite a bit of Native American ideology and lore, I mean, secretly hidden in some of those old cartoons. If you know how to look at the scenery, like you take a look at Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner. A lot of the Lakota myths are actually drawn into the scenery in the background. You just have to watch the cartoon better. Go back and take a look. You'll be amazed. You'll see all kinds of stuff in the backgrounds drawn in. And you'll start to see that it belongs to different cryptids and all kinds of stuff. There's also a lot of political language. Uh, like there was one scene, Roadrunner's outrunning Wile E. Coyote, and he gets uh, these speedy pills that make him run faster. You know, he orders them from Acme, run fast pills. Yeah. When uh, when Wile E. Coyote gets dusted again by freaking running by, and the pills that he left down for Roadrunner to eat, when he kicks that pill bottle up, freeze frame on the bottle. You'll see it's a propaganda slogan about the UN. There's all kinds of stuff hidden in those ancient cartoons. Go go rewatch them and take a look at the background. Freeze frame on anything that's an action scene where something disappears too quick. See what's written on it. You'll find that there's a lot of propaganda, political talk, uh, wartime talk, all kinds of stuff in those old Disney cartoons. Bad pup. Some saw sleep in trees to begin with. Bear people make platform nests between two trees, for instance. The badger people also supposedly live up in tree baskets. I do have a couple of pictures of tree baskets at distance, part of my scouting films. I'll probably do a recording either later tonight or maybe tomorrow before I go to work, showing some various cryptids sitting in tree baskets. Some of them are woven in such a way that it's a lay spot and you can literally sleep, eat, and live in the basket. And it's completely concealed. You know, it's right there in front of you and concealed. So I'll get into some more of that too. Some dogmen also, if they don't go down into caves and they don't build dens with walls and covering or round basket-like structures on the ground, each dogman type has its own type of sleeping structure. There are some other cryptids that have some unique sleeping structures. There's one, the Seminole tell lore about the skunk ape weaving massive baskets in trees that they live in, 20, 30 feet off of the ground. So some of these things are very specific houses for very specific creatures. Some of the structures are very, very specific. We have kind of all the same thing up here because most of the cryptids up here behave similarly. But when you get into some older areas and some more remote locations, they're gonna not be so minuscule in their behaviors. They're gonna act like they did in ancient times. And another video I need to do. I've got to go to a library though. I need to find some information on southwestern hairy, bearded Native Americans, because when they started gene typing and they started understanding language groups and genetics, etc., and getting really firm in it scientifically in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, it was discovered that Ainu and Native American, the Ainu Japanese and Native American, and even the, or not Okanagan, Okinawan people have Native American blood. So, and the admixes are from two different time periods. The Ainu admix to back and forth was several hundred thousands, if not a million or so years before the crossing with Okinawan people. but not the mainland Japanese, because there are technically 3 or 4 different culture groups that live in those islands. Uh, so there's some of that I need to get into too, simply because of the relevance when you're thinking about, how you could go from Mount Fuji to San Jose, California. Because according to my grandmother, the entryway in Japan to the cave system that dumps out here on the west coast around San Jose, California, is in sort of crevice in that mountain, in Mount Fuji. And it's probably never going to be discovered because so many people commit suicide on Mount Fuji. Nobody goes there to research it because the bodies are never removed. And in some sections of Mount Fuji, it's considered too holy to go. So you may not be able to even find the particular fissure that leads to the west coast. But, her lore talked about both ends of it. And then it takes 3.5 years to get through the trail system, to go through the crust of the planet and underneath the ocean to here. So the other is not all of our planet's cave systems are on land. Some of our cave systems and vent tubing are under oceans. Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, let's start doing caps on the questions. Bigfoot. Okay, Connie. Bigfoot multi-dimensional capabilities. Well, I'm not aware of that. My interactions haven't suggested that. They can disappear. They can cloak. When they're moving fast, it's also likely that they are maybe shifting light or time slightly in order to get to those speeds. But I think it's a preservation tactic. I think it's a natural skill. You don't know what, and I don't know what they may have had to survive against. I mean, I wouldn't want to be chased down by some of the dinosaurs in the past. Some of them could run 70 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour, 119 miles an hour. So if you're trying to outrun something that's 100, they can run 119 miles an hour, like a freaking Allosaurus. You're gonna need to have some tactics and some mental acuity and some ways of getting out of that way of something like that. Or even something smaller. We don't know a lot about the habits of dinosaurs. We don't know a lot about the abilities of them. We've got skeletal remains. Recently finally we've got some, petrified skin uh, from a few dinosaurs. And some of it has material we can test. So we're getting some clues. But I think there are still a ton of questions. We have no idea how many of these things may have had poison talons. We have no idea how many of these things may have had poison teeth, or spit like cobras. I mean, we do know that some dinosaurs did spit like cobras. We don't know how fast they could run. We don't know if they had some sort of way of moving through material or matter. We don't know yet. I would say that the majority of what Bigfoot does has got to be biological. Some of it might be honed abilities, talents. Maybe they are a crossbreed with something in some cases. that will allow them to do certain things that other Bigfoot can't do. Because Jen Jen, the first time I saw her looking like a painting on a window, like she was just an outline, I asked her after she stopped looking like that what happened. And she told me she was trying to be invisible, she was trying to match light. But she also told me that the clear skin birthmark that she had was an indicator that she'd had an ancestor several generations back that was a Comazotes person, a bat person, and that he could disappear and change shapes. And that the reason why she would potentially have the real life ability to disappear is because of that ancestral genetic abilities. Having bred physically into her family, like my eyes, my ears, my heightened sense of smell, I can smell orchids. 2% of the Persian world can smell orchids, and about 1.7% of Asians can smell orchids, and almost 10% of Native Americans can smell orchids. Europeans can't smell them. They don't have the receptor to uptake the scent. I can even tell the bloom pattern. 2 o'clock in the afternoon when they're in the sun, they smell like yeast. By 4 o'clock, they smell like perfume, either vanilla or dirty vanilla, and sometimes they'll smell like violets. It's part of their daily bloom cycle. I can smell the details of the bloom. Something my grandmother could do, something a lot of people in the Mideast can do in some family lines. So, having adaptations like that, and remnants of adaptations like that, my eyes are still functional. They function naturally. They're not anything I've learned to control yet. I really need to try to focus on that, though. But if they're just natural adaptations, and then all she said she had to do was to bring that natural adaptation to appear to disappear, not be visible, because they're still there. You can reach out and touch them. That's just a physical ability related to her Comazotes ancestor, according to her. And if I'm to believe the horse's mouth of a cryptid talking about her own genetic line, I'll take it. I don't see any reason to argue with somebody telling me the truth about their own family line, no matter what they look like. Besides, she knew about the Ordovician period. She understood when we had pretty much nothing but water on this planet. And she understood that that's where geological life came from. For her to have that good of an understanding means her lore is that good, because I don't think she sat in a classroom somewhere to learn it like I did. I think she sat in her own classroom with her own people and learned it. Just going through some more conversation. Well, I'm only 1 year behind you there. 1964, Phil. Okay, Phil, are you walking? You know, a lot of my friends call me that. In fact, Encyclopedia is my freaking nickname with some of them. I have had friends call me while I was in class in college to ask me what crossword puzzle answers might be. So, yeah, I've been told that a lot. But If you had the parents I had, my dad had a photographic memory. My mom had an eidetic memory. And she could name every day, date, and time and everything that she ever did in her life. So she also had a particular mental talent. So trying to keep up with those two people, if I asked too many questions, they'd just pull the book off the shelf and say, read it, and then give me a book report tomorrow. So I was kind of power for the cause. I had a lot of access to books, and I was always given an answer or directed to a place where I could find an answer. So the world was not much of a mystery to me, unfortunately, in some ways. But yeah, a lot of my friends call me the walking dictionary or walking encyclopedia. I always have. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad you guys enjoy the conversations that we have. Tammy, I'm not talking to the others. I said, you're awesome. Yeah, no problem. Like I said, this summer I'm going to get into more detail and try to get you some better footage. I'm glad you guys stuck with me for the first year of all the tracking, scouting stuff. But now we can go back through and we can get better images. And I've been able to isolate a couple of areas down by the bear people's ponds where maybe I can catch some video of their family group. And please, when you're looking at my videos and you're watching them and you hear anything, because you're going to hear tapping, you're going to hear oops, you're going to hear growls, wood knocks, occasionally you'll hear language, you'll hear all kinds of stuff in my videos. It's all going to be subtle, so you got to have your hunter ears on. Um, but when you start hearing that sort of activity in my videos, usually there's Bigfoot somewhere close. If I happen to notice where they are, I will normally pull my phone up and just hold my phone in location for a minute or two. If I'm sitting in particular, I'll just kind of point it in that direction. Otherwise, if I'm walking, I'll just kind of pan up and glance in that area with my phone for a second or two. I've been trying to get myself into a better habit of pausing for 20 or 30 seconds so you can get some clear imagery. But always look for the shadow in the shadow, the dark spot in the dark spot, the thing sitting in the recessed point. Unless it's sitting right out in plain view, it's going to be in a little spot like that. If you notice any cryptids sitting in any of them, make a comment in that video's section. Let me know what time mark it is. If it's an area that I've recognized that there's one somewhere floating around in that particular zone, if you can help me pin that little bugger down, I'll get more footage of him. And if it's one I haven't noticed, that'll help me figure out where other individuals might be. So please, if you notice something like that, let me know. I'll be happy to go investigate and document it further. Another thing, now that the weather's getting better in this area and things are clearing up and we're getting into like 50-degree days, I'm going to do some, with my smaller lens, because I can still film as if I'm doing a scouting film, and I can still do a quick manual adjust, and my zoom makes that little tiny lens work really nice. It's just a pop-up. I can get you close in real quick without getting foggy on it or fuzzy. So I'm going to work with that lens first. I'm going to go back through the various locations that are close by, that are local, within 5-10 miles. I can do 3 or 4 of those locations in a day, at least the ones that are above water at this point, not below water. So I'll go back through Bear Woman's area, the Shaman Dogman's area, um, some of the other little local spots, some of the hillock sides, and start showing you what's going on in those areas. Is there some local activity? And then where some of those pond areas, have some activity reliably, I'll do some filming and do some prolonged videoing, 20-30 minutes at a time. Yeah, I'd like to meet bees because you're just outside of Sweet Home. Are you willing, Beezer, to take a drive tomorrow? I don't have to be worked till after 6-7 o'clock at night. You maybe get together for coffee. We could sit down and say hi to each other. 'Cause if you wanna do some, well, I'm 5'8", 5'9", somewhere in there. About 145 pounds, and 61. Oh, and my phone just went down to 20% on the battery. Yeah, Beezer, if you want to end up getting together and hanging out. Okay, Cosmic. Wait, what did you mean? San Jose, California? Yes, San Jose, California. Los Gatos, California, to be exact. It's right just going out towards the valley, going inland from the beach. Los Gatos, California has got the cryptids there. Whole freaking cave system of them. Inner Earth cave there. Whoa! No wonder the Rosicrucians. Uh huh. Exactly. I'll be getting into those details, and I know you're near that area because I understand where you're filming, because that was one of my educational areas as a child. I can clue you in about some more of that stuff down there too. Okay. Connie, have you been to the east side of the country? No, I have only ever been as far as Missoula. Yep, Missoula, Montana, inland. That's it. I've been up and down the west coast, all the way through Canada, yada yada. Well, lower part of Canada, over into Alberta, lower edge. Um, I haven't been up to the permafrost area. I haven't been, maybe more than a couple 100 miles above the border, and a couple 100 miles inland, maybe 1,000 miles inland. So no, I don't. All of my lore and understanding is all local, regional stuff. I am aware of other parts of the United States, kind of in a more general sense, but with specific cryptids in mind, and some Plains Indian stuff and Great Lakes area stuff, because my native family's lore included those regions because of marriage ties and tribal ties and that sort of thing. So we were aware of each other's mythology, and some of it's because of marriages between groups and tribes there. So I have a lot of knowledge about that stuff too, but I've never traveled there. It's just what I was taught. Okay. Oh, really? Praving Mohan. My grandmother said that was true. That there were stone carvings of those flying heads. Ah, thank you for that, Phil. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. All right, guys. Yes, Dogmen will build they'll dig a pit that's depending on the size of the group, anywhere from 3 or 4 foot across, because they kind of lay together, kind of group together. So they'll dig it 3-4 feet deep. They'll put it 3-4 foot across to maybe 6-8 feet across. Yeah, sometimes 10-15 feet long. They'll build a little little rock wall close to where they go in and out. I've even seen them build loops to go in and out. Then they'll kind of put a thatch roof, like rickracked material, across the top, and then they'll stack foliage to hide it. They'll put them in, hillsides, hilltops, drop-off points where they can hide them. Sometimes they'll build them kind of like a Puebloan style. So they'll find a rock wall and then they'll rock the rock wall in. I have one location like that here, but they're doing it under an not where you'd expect it. But it is the same behavior. And then they'll cover it over with greenery. That's a common way that they build a nest. They build a burrow, but it's human-like the way they build it. I'll get into more of that too. So the first few things that I put up, I'll do a weekly vote, and then I'll talk about them. Okay. So you guys will be able to tell me which cryptid you want to hear about first, while I'm still trying to draw the pictures and remember the mapped out locations that my grandmother told me of some of these locations where they hunt, forage, and lived. That San Jose Cave is new info to me. It shouldn't be. There are in Los Gatos, California, because you can go. It's a private community, but with permission, you can go back to the cave. Um, there's a lot of information about it. The local people that are in that area are real quiet about it. They don't publicize it. They don't talk about it. They're aware of it. The whole community there has lived around that cave entry for generations. You can go through. There are some fruit stands and stuff in that little town. It's not very big, and sometimes you'll get permission to go back and view the cave. My mom and I were given access to a roadway where we could go and sit and look and view it. There are steps going in and out of the cave. Some of them are carved stone steps. More modern ones have been added in cement by the people that live there. And there are still some people that supposedly trade with the cave people there. Go get a field trip going. Anyway, it looks like my is either going or my battery is going pretty good. I know I'm below 20% at this point. I'm sorry I didn't get to everybody's questions again. Oh my goodness. So, yeah, I'll be doing more lives like this. I involve more regional maps of cryptids, and I'll make a weekly post with, or maybe every other week, probably put 2 critters up at a time and have you guys vote to see which ones you want to hear about first. And it's going to be a lot of historic animals to begin with, and mapping timelines, and then I'll try to get into some of the others as we get a better picture of what's already what's remaining out there in the wild, what's still there. Anyway, it's almost 3 hours, and think my phone's about to die. I'm so sorry, guys. It's been great. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you all, and I'm so grateful that you are my subscribers. For everybody that's new here and isn't aware, I'm not like any other cryptid research individual you're going to run across. I have some very tried and true methods for going out in the field and getting results. I know how to track them. The reason why I have such consistent filming ability is because I know how to track them, because I understand a little bit about their culture, their behavior, their language, what I can get away with, what I can't get away with, where some of them live. I don't have a lot of guesswork in my work. I got a lot of Which kind of thing do I want to record and show off is more what I got going on. And I hope to keep doing that with you and educate you more about what my grandmother and my mother taught me. Oh, and my dad also, his family had a contact with a Klickatat cat in the Okanagan back in 19, I think it was 1919 or 1920. My dad was 2 or 3 years old and it came close to their cabin. It seemed docile. They figured it was hungry. So Grandpa went hunting for it and gave it some game. It stayed around for a couple of weeks and left. It was a young male. They got a pretty look at it. What my grandmother and my mother described is very similar to what they saw. Sorry I didn't cover that in this. I kind of got distracted. I wanted to try to remember to talk about their sighting as well. So yeah, even in 1920, there were still recordings of them in the Okanagan area, at least. So Klickatat Cat is not just in the Columbia River Gorge, but pretty much anywhere where you're going to have hoodoos, those eroded cliff sides and mountain sides and deep ravines. There's a good chance you'll find them in those regions, even today. Thank you, everybody. Take care. I appreciate you all. And I'm glad that I'm able to document this stuff and share it. I'm glad I've gotten to a point where I can start sharing more detailed stuff. Makes me really happy to be able to do this. Thank you, everyone. Take care.